And we're back. Stuart Rosenthal, welcome back.
Thank you, Don.
When you come on, it's so enlightening. Beacon, again, we talk about this. I hope I
No
don't.
pun intended.
Yeah, but I love your publication.
Thank you, thank you.
I read it.
Me too.
Yes. All right. Now we've got a travel story we're going to get to towards the end. Hopefully we can squeeze it in. A couple of great health stories.
Very interesting studies that I want to talk about, yes. Clinical depression is a serious problem. They say between 6 and 7% of the population has it every year.
Didn't that sound kind of low?
Well, no.
I mean, it's a lot of people, but I'm sorry. It seems like some
maybe there's more. That's a problem.
But
Part of the problem
lifetime
is
incidence is probably high.
Oh yes, but also the problem is people don't report it. If you're depressed, you're not talking about it. You're not going to see a doctor, right? That's part of the problem.
Exactly.
So diagnosing it is very difficult. So one of the holy grails has been to try to find a simple blood test that can diagnose depression, and maybe they found it. Northwestern University Medical School has done some studies, a small study, but it seems to be very interesting that there are 9 blood markers that appear to identify adult clinical depression. Wow. They're RNA molecules, genetic, right? And they can find it in the blood. So first of all, they took 32 people between 20 and 70, 20 and 80, I think, actually, who had been diagnosed with depression, and the same number who had not. And they checked their blood to see if there was any way of finding, and they found this pattern, that there are these 9 markers that seem to identify depression. So then they gave the people who had depression therapy. Right. They gave them cognitive behavioral therapy, and those that improved with the therapy and reported that they were no longer depressed, their markers changed.
Wow.
That's interesting.
Yes, so it's the first time there's been evidence that psychotherapy actually has a physiological effect that can be determined.
I'm impressed
and
with
one that's
Northwestern.
pretty rapid because it actually
over
was
18
responded.
months, over 18 months, right.
I'm impressed with Northwestern because that's the same university when I talked before about they were able to identify some cancer markers in the blood.
This is apparently one of the things they're really working on, so it's fascinating.
So
now, something else very interesting. They then also found that of those who had improved and got over the depression and their markers changed, there were still 3 of the 9 markers that were the same as those who were depressed. Okay. Even though they were no longer depressed and the other markers had changed. Well, that suggests that maybe there are vulnerabilities that are genetic that people have that give them a tendency towards depression. So maybe you can even find people in advance who might be having a tendency towards depression, and then you can take interventions ahead of time and prevent it from happening. So there are all kinds of
And is the
potentials.
idea that down the road this would be part of a routine blood test, or it would be something that you would do if there was some cause or reason to believe there was an issue?
I don't know what they have planned. Right now they're going to do larger human testing to make sure that this really holds true over the large populations, but I think it's fascinating and has a lot of potential.
So depression, we're going to solve depression.
God will.
I love having you on here because we have these stories, and I found that you're usually 3, 4, 5 months ahead of the curve with these.
We have spies everywhere.
No, but you get into the nuts, but it's really exciting. So, so the next thing is on cancer.
On cancer, right? Now this is a mouse study, but it's also very interesting. So the body tends to fight off abnormal cells. The regular immune system gets rid of them. But when you get to the point where you actually have a tumor, where it's growing, the tumor emits a substance that tends to put the T cells and the immune cells to sleep. Right. And apparently that's because as the cells grow, they use up all the oxygen, and that low oxygen environment triggers the release of this hormone that gets rid of, puts to sleep the other. So someone theorized, first of all, there's a lot of study going on right now. How do you stop this from happening? But one study they just did at Northeastern University this time was to say, what if we just increase the oxygen supply in the blood? It's a pretty simple thing to do. So they took these mice who had lung cancer, they had given them lung cancer, whatever, and they had tumors, and they put them in oxygen environments, high oxygen environments, and sure enough, the ones who were in the high oxygen environment, their tumors grew more slowly, and when they then injected them with additional immunotherapy, it was much more effective than those who were not in regular.
So they are really just pumping up the cell's own oxygen levels.
And that is apparently stopping the tumor cells from putting the regular immune system to sleep and allowing the immune system to do its job. So that's very simple, very inexpensive, readily available. So some doctors are saying, why wait for human studies? Let's just start giving oxygen to these. It's very simple to do. But of course, they're going to be doing human studies.
Well,
in this study, were there no adverse impacts of increasing the oxygen?
There's no side effects, is my
Jane,
understanding.
We've got about 40 seconds, and I want to get to the travel story. So
well, that was what I was going to add, is that so many things that they can do. They're discovering new things to do to treat cancer, but they come with side effects.
Right.
So
this is one that doesn't, and it's very inexpensive.
And expensive, the immunology things right now.
Perfect.
Travel. I want to know travel. If I've got cancer and I'm depressed, where can I go to?
Antarctica, if you got the money. Very expensive.
Okay.
Very complicated. And there are issues about it. It's at least $10,000 and often 20 or 30 or whatever.
So go to Antarctica. Don't spend money on this
it's the last
treatment.
frontier.
Right.
There's 600,000 emperor penguins. During the season, which is November to March, it's 24 hours of daylight. It's not exactly warm. It's very, very cold, but you can see a lot of things. There's wildlife. So it's apparently the place to go now if you got the money.
Guys, $50,000, the 5 of us can go. Let's go. Let's do Montgomery Week in Review from Antarctica.
Oh, that sounds like a great idea.
Great idea.